All right, let's go ahead and start with your memory scripture. Your memory scripture was John 3:16. Let's see how well we can say it. So John 3:16.
God so loved the world that he gave his only shall not perish but have everlasting life.
Okay. Sounds good. So that's pretty good. So tomorrow we'll have our test on this scripture. If you're still kind of, unsure on some parts, practice on tonight so that you're well prepared for the test on tomorrow. All right, so let's go over our our lessons from this week. Okay, so I'll just go over the questions. We'll just do a little review today. Nothing too deep. All right. All right, so first question, if you know the answer, you can just raise your hand to give the answer. We'll just do a little review. We're not doing a game today, okay? So how many kings came against the Israelite army? How many kings came against them, Carly? 5 kings with their 5 armies. So that was 5 kings, 5 armies that came against Israel. Yes. Okay. All right, so what did Joshua and the army of the Israelites do when the Gibeonites told them about the battle? That the 5 kings were planning. What did Joshua and his army do when they heard about this battle that was coming? Okay, Naraya. Yeah, they went to meet the 5 armies, right? They kind of surprised them because the 5 armies were actually trying to surprise the Israelite army, but little did they know the Israelite army was coming to meet them. So so they went out and marched to battle. They went out that night and they went out to battle. So during the battle, what was Joshua afraid of happening during the battle? What was he afraid of? Because they were fighting for a long time. And what was Joshua afraid of? What would happen? Okay, Avaya?
He thinks his army's gonna go to sleep because the battle is going on so long.
Yes. He was afraid that his army would get weak and tired because they had been up since the night before. So he was very concerned about his army going through that battle. He was afraid that they would become tired and lose the battle. So what did Joshua ask the Lord to do so that they would basically kind of have more time during this battle? What did he ask the Lord to do? Okay, Kenley?
Cause the sun and moon.
Yes, to make the sun and moon stand still, which kind of I told you is like basically could he got freeze time or make the time feel longer, more daytime, so that they could, have more daytime as they were fighting in the battle. And so did God answer Joshua's prayer? Did the Lord do what Joshua asked, Lyric? Yes, the Lord did answer Joshua's prayer and he paused the sun and moon, right? Something that had never happened before. The Lord did it for Joshua. He heard Joshua's prayer and he paused the sun and he made the sun stand still. What else did God send that also destroyed the 5 armies? This helped the Israelites during the battle. What else did the Lord send? Okay, Harlem, I'm trying to give everybody a chance. I'm getting like the same 2 people raising their hand online. Okay.
A hailstorm.
A hailstorm. He sent a hailstorm that also destroyed the other army, the 5 armies. So not only, were they victorious in the battle, but then the Lord helped them out. I told you kind of through nature, where he also gave them victory. So who ended up winning the full battle? The 5 armies or the Israelite army? Who won the battle? The Israelite army ended up winning the battle. The Lord had given them the victory. Okay, So where did the 5 kings run and hide? Because they realized that they were losing the battle, that their armies were losing. So where did the 5 kings run so that they could hide? Kinley?
In the cave.
They went and hid in a cave, right? But Joshua got word that they were hiding in the cave, so he told his soldiers to put a stone in front of the cave that would kind of be like a prison to them where they could not escape. So what happened after the battle and everything? Joshua went to the 5 kings. What ended up happening to them? What did Joshua order his soldiers to do to them?
Oh, I can't even pronounce the other one.
Faith? What did he tell his armies, not his armies, his soldiers to do to the 5 kings?
Kill them.
Yeah, to execute them, right? He said to kill them, let them go, not to kill them, right? Okay, so after this was, one of their biggest battles that they had. So after this battle, what does the Lord tell Joshua to do with the rest of the land? Because they had conquered a lot of the land at this point, but Joshua's a lot older. And so what does the Lord tell Joshua to do when it comes to the rest of the land, conquering the rest of the land? What were God's instructions to Joshua to tell the people? Well, what was his instructions to do with the rest of the land?
To divide them and each army gets one.
Yes, to divide the land amongst the 12 tribes, and each of the 12 tribes would have their own piece of the land. So the Lord told him to divide the land among the tribes. What were the tribes instructed to do when they possessed their land? When they got their piece of land, what were their instructions? Solomon, are you raised? Yeah, okay. You're not raising your hand?
I know.
Okay.
I know.
Nariah?
He told him to never forget God.
Yes, that is true. But I mean, like, whenever they went to take their land, what were they supposed to do? Like, they were supposed to do something.
Take people.
Yes, remove the other nations out of the land. The Lord did not want the people living in the land with his people. So the Lord told them to remove the other nations out of the land. Now, did all of the tribes do what the Lord said? No, we know Judah did because Caleb, with the giants and the mountains, he did, but not all the tribes did. They did not remove the people from the land like the Lord instructed them to. And what did some of the tribes end up doing with the other nations that were living in the land? What did they do with them, Lyric?
Exterminating bad guys.
Yes, they did. Yep. They allowed them to live in the land with them. They actually started to marry the other nations, and they, were all living together in the land. And that's not what God wanted. He said, remove the nations because the land belonged to the Hebrews. But instead, they allowed the people to live in the land with them. They started to marry them. Then they started to do some of the same, sinful things that they were doing. So what evil did Israel begin to do in the sight of the Lord? Not only were they mixing with the people, but then they started doing this, and God was not pleased with this. Anna?
I know. They wanted to worship a false god.
They started to worship the false gods of the land, of the other nations. They worshiped false gods. They made statues to the gods. They were bowing down to the gods. They had forsaken the true and living God, the God who gave them the land, and started worshiping these false gods. And God was not pleased with them. So because of their idol worship, they're turning away from God. What did God allow to happen to the Israelites? What did God allow to happen because they turned away from God? Okay, Avaya.
Put your dress down. Yes, it is.
Avaya?
I have a question.
Well, I wanted to answer these questions first. Yeah, did you want to answer this one?
No, I don't have I don't have an answer because something was cuckoo, and because the heart and the hand was up, and I got them down.
Okay. All right. So because of their idol worship, what did God allow to happen to the Hebrews? Because they were worshiping the false gods.
He sent a hailstorm. They turned into slaves.
Yeah, their enemies began to capture them and put them in bondage and different things. They would charge them high taxes. They would make them slaves. You know, it was really bad for them, but it was because they turned away from God. So God would give them to their enemies. But Israel, after the Lord gave them to their enemies, what would they then do? Because they were, you know, tired of being in their bondage and tired of being slaves and tired of being charged high taxes. So what would they then do when they were tired of being in the place that they were in, Nariah? They would cry out to the Lord. They would cry to God to help them. They would tell God they were sorry. They love him. They would turn back to him. So who would God raise up to free the people? I told you this is where this comes from. Who would God raise up to free the people? This is the next people we're talking about. The what? He would raise up this particular person. The person will be called a certain thing.
I forgot. I know.
What was it? A judge. The Lord would raise up a judge to free the people from their bondage. They would cry out to the Lord. They would ask for help. God would raise up a judge to help the people out, right? So Othniel, he's special. What is special about Othniel? He's Israel's first what?
I know it. Cousin. First king.
No, Harlem?
Judge.
He's their first judge. So Israel's first judge was Othniel. He's the first person that the Lord raised up. So remember, the king of Mesopotamia had Israel under bondage for 8 years, right? Treating them harshly, treating them bad. And so they cried out to the Lord. So God raises up Othniel to judge Israel, and he frees them from the king of Mesopotamia. The Spirit of the Lord came upon him, and he freed them from their bondage. And so God heard their prayer and set them free. So Othniel, after he set them free, he judged Israel. Does anyone remember how many years he judged over the people? 8. Lyric is the number we use all the time. Lyric? Huh?
18.
Not 18. That was for something else.
40 years.
40 years he judged the land of Israel, and they had peace in the land. They were serving the Lord. They were good, right? Everything was good. But then Othniel dies, and what do the people do as soon as they don't have a judge anymore? What do they then do? As soon as he dies, what do? Let's see. Okay, Lyric.
They worship false gods again.
They turn back to worshiping the false gods again. They turn back to worshiping the false gods. They go right back to it. So what happened when they went back to worshiping the false gods? What happens to them? I told you it was a constant cycle that they would go through. So what happens? Okay, what happens?
They were slaves again.
They were given back into the hands of their enemies. The Lord allowed their enemies to rule over them again. And so next week we'll pick up, because now they're under bondage again from the King Eglon, right? They're back in bondage again. And so we'll talk about how the Lord will raise up another judge. I told you this is a constant cycle. So it's kind of similar to whenever they were in the wilderness, right? They went through the constant complaining, then the Lord would provide, then they would be happy, and then they would complain again, the Lord would provide. So it was just a constant cycle. And we see it the same thing here in Judges, where they worship God, they love God, then they start to worship false gods, they get into bondage, they get set free, they have peace, then they go back to worshiping false gods. Okay. All right. So these are the questions that will be on your test on tomorrow. So make sure to go over the video if you weren't sure of the answers. Some of them, I'm assuming that's maybe why we didn't have a lot of participation this morning. Maybe we kind of didn't know. So go over the video so that you're prepared for the test on tomorrow, okay? And also review your memory scripture, all right? So that's it for Bible today, guys. I hope you have a good day. We have our phonics test. I'll see everyone later today. Bye-bye.